Today, we're going to have a vintage lens shootout. We're going to compare this Jupiter 9 made in the 80s with this brand new modern Rokinon Cine lens. Let's see how they do. Let's shoot a few scenes outside, wide open and stop down. Let's see how these lenses compare. First, let's check out the two lenses wide open. The Jupiter 9 is definitely taking some flare. You can see it's all glowy, but let's rack the focus and see what these lenses do. The Rokinon, on the other hand, looks a bit more contrasty, and it pretty much continues that throughout the iris range. However, the Jupiter 9 doesn't look bad. Now, once we get down to f8, you can still see there is a difference. The Jupiter 9 is flaring, and it's actually opening up the shadows and darker areas of the image rather nicely. It's a kind of a nice benefit here. Of course, to get these exposures, I did adjust the ISO of the camera up and down. And again, we still see the Rokinon as a much more contrasty lens, while the Jupiter 9 is a bit more open. Which lens came out ahead? Well, that depends on the look you're going for. Obviously, this Rokinon is still very clean, wide open, while the Jupiter 9 has this very warm, diffused, amazing glow to it. In fact, if you've been following my reviews on the Jupiter 9, you know they're all a little bit different. One from the 60s versus one made in the 70s versus this one made in the 80s. And I think they made them up well into the 90s. They're all going to have a different look because they were made in 6 different factories. So this is a very interesting lens, depending on which particular copy you happen to run into. You have to be careful with these Jupiter 9 lenses because the quality of them can really vary all over the place. Mine happen to be a really excellent copy in great shape. Others look like they've been sitting outside. They're rusted, dirty, disgusting, and hey, maybe you like the image it makes because it is messed up. Obviously, with lenses, the choice is yours. You have to decide what kind of image you're looking to make. Do you need super clean, or are you looking for that warm, soft, diffused glow? Of course, you can put something like a Pro Mist or glitter glass in front of the lens. I do have a bunch of these filters myself, and I will use them from time to time on a modern lens when I think it's a little too sharp or I want that glow that a diffusion filter can give me. Now, for example, a 1/8 black Pro Mist is a very subtle filter, takes the contrast down a little. I can't tell you what camera doesn't look better with this. You can even go to a 1/4 black Pro Mist most of the time, and you'll probably barely, if ever, notice that it's on the lens, except for a little bit of hazing around highlights. These older lenses, depending on their coatings, may flare more or less depending on the coatings they do or don't have, the factory that made them, and how far stopped down you are. Basically, you got to put your eye to the viewfinder and see what you're getting, and you're either loving it or you're not, and you got to fix it from there. Obviously, backlighting is going to trigger flare. Sometimes, if you've got a direct light source in the frame or just on the edge of the frame but still hitting the glass, you can get some really nice, lovely flares. Other times, it may just be ugly. You may just be blowing things out and desaturating, decontrasting your image. But that may be perfectly fine if you're looking to make that kind of image. In this case, I find I really like this lens. It's very pleasing, but we come over to the Jupiter 9. It's also nice too. Again, it's subtle differences. I mean, the Jupiter 9 has a 15 blade iris. It's perfectly round and smooth, so even when you start stopping it down, this lens is still making very nice bokeh. It's referred to as the bokeh monster. The Rokinon, on the other hand, has 8 blade iris. And I find that once you start stopping it down, one of the iris blades usually tends to get a bit lazy, probably near at the far end where you're probably not going to shoot anyway, except in the most interesting of circumstances. So this Jupiter 9 in some ways could be 40 years old, outclasses this modern glass. And I'm not picking on the Rokinon either, because you know what? Even the Canon lens, unless you get into one of their Cine models, is still an 8 blade or 9 blade aperture. So the question is, do you want to spend $5,000–6,000 for a Cine lens, or do you want to pick up one of these Jupiter lenses for a good copy? Probably about $150 to $200. So let's take a look at a few other things that I got to shoot with these two lenses. Yeah, I'm a little bit overexposed on this, but I color corrected that within reason. And overall, a Rokinon is just an absolutely perfectly great lens, especially stopped down a few stops. Not that it isn't also quite nice, fully wide open without any soft characteristics. Now we go to the Jupiter 9, and the first thing you'll probably notice is that the blacks are a little bit warmer. Overall, the lens is a little bit warmer. That's fine. I mean, this isn't anything that you couldn't neutralize out in color correction. I also think that this slightly softer look is also a bit more organic. I think it's a bit more film-like. And as we watch things move along, we start to see that there is even fine hair detail still holding up, even though I've got this lens out at maybe 5.6 or so. But certainly, as you can see, most lenses, once you stop them down a bit, are quite reasonably sharp for certainly 1080 and even 4K most of the time. And there's a little bit of that swirly bokeh that we love from this lens. It's a characteristic background thing, and I love this bokeh. It's just lively and interesting. It's certainly better than the creamy mush that some other lenses are known for making. So there you have it, a look at a modern and vintage lens, same focal length. And of course, you know what? They're both great lenses. They both serve different purposes. So, eventually I finally decided that if you really want to be a serious DP, you wind up ending a set of both vintage and prime lenses because they have different looks, different color renditions, and if you're looking to get a particular look, you just need the right lens for the job, and that's what it comes down to. And given that these lenses are all very affordable, it's not an unreasonable thing to consider actually having a full set of primes in both vintage and new glass.